But I'm learning my style is kind of like motivating you guys, and not only with present time and now, but just my story and what I went through, because obviously God puts us all through something that it's a trial and tribulation thing, right? So I learned a lot of lessons, and now I can actually help people discover and reconnect to what's going on around them. So when I first started Pivotal Edge, it was definitely one of those moments of like, I didn't even know what I was starting. Genuinely, I just knew I wanted more. It's one of those things that kill me, because there's so many people out there with so much talent, and we're just doing absolutely nothing with it. And it pains me, because God asks us to be a steward of His word, be a steward of His prophecy, teach, speak, don't be scared, don't be fragile, don't be insecure. So many things He touches on, and it's so many people doing the exact opposite, or recalculating their own version of an avenue of how this life should be, whether that be universal or through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Heavenly Father, Buddha, whoever it is you believe in. And I know for a fact that there is a higher source. Do I know what religion's true? I have my personal opinions about that. Okay, but honestly, religion, if there was one, I would pick Mormon. Okay, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's something special about that religion of on-earth proof, physical proof of a book, plates, the brass, the Liahona, everything. It's crazy to me. And I love those kinds of stories, because when I read, I'm an observer of proof. And like the Bible, how was it found? How did it come about? We don't really know, but the Book of Mormon we do know. You know what I mean? I'm not saying the Bible's not true at all, but I like the Bible. I do, because it's really the ultimate blueprint of life. And one thing I struggle with is actually staying dedicated every single day, or I should rephrase that. When I was on my journey, I would rephrase that every day, because it's like I would read, but I wouldn't understand what exactly I was reading, And I was going through Instagram one day, and I saw this one dude, and he was posting, his name's Vic Silva, so shout out to you, bro. He put, the day everything changed was the day I started to choose myself as chosen and start to live as chosen, as a chosen one. You know what I mean? And that stuck with me. And at the time, I didn't even know what a chosen one was. So I'm 23, 24 years old, just understanding what chosen was. I was like, oh my gosh, it's in a Bible. And funny fact, guys, I had a sales team when I was selling solar, literally named Chosen. We called ourselves the Chosen Ones, right? And I just loved the idea. I loved the name. It sounded like it fit. And shortly after that, I learned that it was in the Bible, such as Chosen Ones, main character energy. And I was just like, no freaking way. So I thought that was wild. Because if you look up on ChatGPT or online or the Bible of like a main character energy and essence, it's kind of cool, because it's like it fits the description of my character. It talks about like just having grit, understanding the values of the world, kind of sitting in the back, just take notes and understanding energies to where you need to recognize if it's meant for you or if it's not meant for you. You know what I mean? And it's just some of those things you really got to take in. And if you don't recognize them, guess what keeps happening? The same things over and over and over. And I think that's why it brought me to a point in my career to where I was like, dude, I am so sick of being scared. I'm so sick of being like hidden when I had so much to come out. You know what I mean? I wanted to speak my mind. I wanted to preach. I wanted to get mad. Like, dude, this world throws so much at you, and it's literally all up to you on what you do and how you partake it and how you handle it and fight back, right? We get knocked on our tail 955 times, for me, a week. Sometimes even 2 or 3 days I'm on my butt, and I have to get up over and over and over. Like every morning lately, I know I'm getting closer to my overall purpose and my true calling, because I'm starting to figure things out, but it's only on His time. It's not my time. But the more I'm seeing this, it's like, okay, Satan's really trying to pull me away. He's throwing every distraction in my way, trying to get me to confuse it with reality on what God's plan is for me. And I can't let him win again. He's won so many times because, guys, let's be honest, we're all sinners. None of us are perfect, but what we are good at is understanding his word, understanding his promptings, understanding discernment, seeing bad and recognizing evil, so you can then twist it and be like, okay, is this Satan or is this God talking to me right here? And why would this come in my life? And how can I recognize it when it does so? You know, so that's what Psalms taught me. You know, it's what Matthew taught me, the book of Job. Like, so many different things taught me discerning hearts, how to understand the white lies of the world, of character, essences, of frequencies, of energy, like so many different things. You know, and I started to come to conclusions that you got to be careful, because what this world's kind of going down into is like these people who think they can read the future and tell the future. Guys, if you are seeing any of that stuff on the screen, like, I understand, like, somebody coming at you with motivation, just be like, keep going, you know, God has better stuff like for you out there. Like, I get that. I watch that stuff and I'm like, okay, let's keep going. You know, it motivates me. But there's bad things, you know, there's evil energies out there that only are recognizable to the past trials, you know, and they know our past better than anybody. And sometimes our past has those trigger trauma moments, you know, so when we can reconcile on those different thoughts of patterns of like, okay, and recognizing the differences, it's kind of easier to keep molding. But when they keep bringing up the past, of course they know the future, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because you can, it's just different parables, different avenues, different ways to say things. It's all an illusion. It's all a fugazi, and you got to really understand, like, hey, this is just my ancestors talking to me, because what do they know? The past, you know, it's the dead, you know, it's, in my eyes, it's evil. It's demonic almost, because it's false hope. When you're putting all your focus and time and energy into something that's telling you your future, it's kind of like, I'm not focusing on God and what he has for me in my future, you know? So little bits and pieces to take away on that. And that's what I had struggles with growing up. You know, it's like all these things coming in my face, and I had to really push the distractions out. And I still struggle with it, because social media nowadays, guys, is kind of like a farm just for that stuff, you know, like tarot card readings, you know, people thinking they know everything future wise, the manifestation part. Like, I understand the brain's powerful, and I understand the word of manifestation, because think about it, if prophets or prophecies back in the day could have, you know, imagination of having certain promptings to go into the next day and tell the world, like, hey, this is the true gospel, this is all this has happened, God's telling me this, to take my family here, you know, never look back, or somebody turns into a grain of salt. Like, there's so many different paraphrases and parables in the Bible that talk about that stuff. And I don't think manifestation would not be a thing if that was a thing. And if not, I think they're claiming the wrong vocabulary on that, because manifestation is, of course, saying something and it coming to reality. I believe in imagining something so hard to where God gives you discernment to chase that purpose, you know, and you got to be able to feel yourself, understand yourself, because it's very hard to emotionally regulate those feelings sometimes. And if you're not prepared, it can be really tough. You know, that's kind of why I wanted to start these videos. It's a good thing for you guys to understand, like, the ups and downs, because this is one of those jobs. This is one of those things that you have to be delusional. Yeah, but you're delusional comes from years and years of experience of understanding, like, everything you went through, to where you can then help another soul and help a hand and save them 3, 4, 5 years of time. Because seriously don't think people understand how serious your journey is and how hard it is if you don't have the correct guidance and help when it comes to a situation like this, right? Like, for example, I was homeless, you know, I was going door to door for solar, I was going door to door for like alarms, roofs. So what was I doing? I just needed a place to live. So I was literally going to stay in these Airbnbs, and they would house me there, and every single day I would seriously have to show gratitude of, like, understanding, like, God has me here for a reason. I can't give up on him. And anytime I wanted to give up, it was very hard for me to, because I could reconnect to my why. I could understand my purpose was bigger than the actual present time. And I knew, it says in the Bible, it says, a man who thinketh can literally becometh, and a man who continues to work hard and has faith and keeps the commandments which he has giveneth can overcome any obstacle, and he is bound to get blessed with the fruits of fruition of the labors. You know what I mean? So little things like that, that's what kept me going. And going back to understanding, like, hey, your parents said you couldn't do this, you know, your friends said you weren't going to amount up to anything, you know, your teachers thought you were just a class clown your whole life. So all these things ended up being battles and like little trauma triggers in my head. And as a 20-year-old, let's just say 18 from 25-year-old, like, you have to really process those things. And because what's going to happen is you're going to have other relationships and other connections, certain scenarios that happen from your past trauma triggers, and you're going to have to reconcile on them and say, okay, is this my toxicity talking, or is this educational for me? Is this irregulation that I have to control? And you have to control that emotional line. That's why I had a mentor back in the day. He said, Ashton, he said, you're really insecure. And in my head, dude, I'm like, no, I'm cocky. If anything, like, I'm not insecure. But he was right. I couldn't, like, trust anybody. I didn't trust him. I couldn't look a man in the eyes for a long time. There was several things I couldn't do that just pointed to insecurity. So what did I alter real quick? And then I was like, well, what do I have to alter to him? And he said, Ashton, you don't know how to keep your emotional line straight. So how can you understand the value of being a man and recognizing the insecurities of you? Because there's more than just being insecure, right? It goes into your relationships, it goes into your day-to-day discipline, like, and if you can't master the art of loving yourself, because what ruins love for yourself? Pornography, the judgment of other people's character instead of yours. Because sometimes we struggle with what? Thinking somebody has everything made when you haven't got anything and you're just as talented or just as good. You got to stop the comparison levels. You got to stop acting like everybody's out to get you. That's what that stuff does. That's what porn does. It'll keep going back into these cycles over and over. And it's seriously only up to us to wake up. And this is why mental health is such a big problem too, is a lot of men think something is so serious because people embed the seriousness of them into the game, right? So let's just say, for an example, Rondell Moore, he was at the Vikings, and he was actually a friend of my quarterbacks in high school. So really close, saw him FaceTime all the time. So to hear that news, I was kind of like, dang, like, he was a good kid. I wonder what happened. Then you start seeing all these documentaries and these little clips of him, and Rondell Moore was just in his head about his career. It's all he did was focus on that, and he dropped a pass. It just hurt him. You could tell, and it ate him alive. And it's like, I get it. Like, I understand that's your job. You got to do that. But there's always a next rep. It's just like, you got to emotionally regulate yourself and control your emotional line. It's like when you have a girlfriend. She throws you off of it. Guess what? If she throws you off, she's probably not the one. And if she does, you got to be a masculine man and control it and keep it level. It's just the cycles of life. Guys, one thing that I struggled with the most was controlling my emotional line. The second I started to understand the regulations around that line and what makes my emotions react, that's exactly when I started to understand more. It's when I started to be more secure with myself, smiling, looking at people, looking at other relationships, being friends with my friends' girlfriends, and being regulated all in the situation, as in, like, we all get along and we know our standards. Because why? We eliminated the disbelief of, like, very toxicity, like, friendships who weren't good for the circle, right? And we keep growing, we keep elevating, and then we understand, like, okay, God made all this happen so everybody could understand each other. We're all on the same frequency. It's just weird how he places and takes, right? He takes and replaces. And some people can't go with you into certain rooms, so he takes you to make you learn, reconcile, understand who centers your life, which honestly, people say you have full control. And I think you do have full control of how you want to live. But I think, like I said over and over, it's like many are called and few are chosen. So all the people who are called, and they just keep getting further and further away from the true calling of who centers everything, every connection, every moment. That's why when my positive affirmations come into play, I always think of my affirmations instead of manifestations, into, like, God, talk to me, lead me, guide me, walk beside me, help me find the way. You know what I mean? And he will. He'll grab your hand when you don't recognize it. It might not be on your time. All right, but I promise you guys, I've been on my journey for 7 years now, and all he has done is level me up on his timeline.